In this week's Parashat Miketz, the brothers meet up with Yosef again. Just they don't know it's Yosef. The full reconciliation, the full reunification is only going to take place in next week's Parasha when Yosef says the stinging words, Ani Yosef ha'odavichai, and everything changes at that moment, and we get closer to a family coming back together again. But in this week's Parasha, the beginning of the Teshuvah process is starting, but the brothers don't fully realize it yet. Yosef has to do a little bit of work to try to bring it out of them. But already from the very start, when there's this great famine that hits the land of Israel, Eretz Canaan has a Ra'av, and Yaakov sends the brothers down to Yosef. So he sends down 10 brothers, leaves Benjamin with him. They come down, and already on the way down, the Pasuk says that they go down. Vayerdu ahei Yosef asara lishbor bar Mitzrayim. The brothers of Yosef go down to bring food from Mitzrayim. And comes along Rashi, and Rashi says, why are they called Achei Yosef, the brothers of Yosef? V'lo katav bnei Yaakov. Shouldn't it say that they're the sons of Yaakov? What is all of a sudden the brothers of Yosef? Melamed shayu mitcharetim b'mechirato. He says, they started to regret their selling of Yosef. And then now they want to act with him with brotherhood, and they want to go redeem him. And any money they can find, if they can find him out there in Egypt, they're going to go try to find that money. And there's the Midrash that they go through all the different gates of Egypt. They're trying to find Yosef according to this Rashi, according to these Midrashim, because they want to try to make a change. They want to try to fix things. They want to try to bring about a little bit of the unification of their family. Now, I saw a beautiful interpretation in the writings of Nachama Leibovich about how the whole Teshuvah process of the brothers takes place. The brothers meet up with Yosef right now. They're asking for food. They don't recognize Yosef. So Yosef, and actually Rabbi Khan's beautiful shiurim, where he tries to say that Yosef is trying to get them to say, we miss our brother, we're looking for our brother, but they won't say it. They just keep the party line. We're looking for food. Even though Rashi comes along, the Midrash comes along, and says deep down they really are looking for Yosef, they can't express that to this ruler of Egypt, and but still a little bit of Teshuvah starting inside, and Yosef is going to play a little game with them to try to get them to do Teshuvah. So he puts them in jail, and I heard a beautiful idea that Yosef's saying, you threw me into a bore. In Egypt, a prison is called a bore because they throw him into a bore out there back in Israel before they sold him. But also, when Potiphar throws him into a jail, the jail is called a bore. So right now, because Yosef was taken out of the bore, so over here also he's putting them into a jail. Feel a little bit what he went through. Maybe that'll get them thinking about their brother Yosef to openly say they're doing Teshuvah. But it still doesn't happen. So then what happens? So the Pasuk goes on and says that Yosef tells them, they don't know it's Yosef. He says, leave Shimon over here with me, and you guys go down and bring me back your brother, so I know that you guys aren't spies. And at this point, the brothers start to realize, there's something bigger going on. And the Shuvah level gets much stronger, because it says, Vayamru ish elechav, this is in Perik Membet Pasuk Kaf Aleph, Vayamru ish elechav, the brothers speak to each other, Aval Ashemim Anachnu, we're guilty. Al Achinu Asher Ra'inu Tzarat Nafsho, because of our brothers, because we saw all the pain that was going on in his soul. Bitchaneno Aleinu, when he was crying out to us. Velo Shaman, when we didn't listen to his cries. Al Ken Bar Aleinu Atzara Azot, and therefore this is why all the difficulty, all the anguish, all that happens right now is when he was pleading for his life, when he was crying out to us, we didn't listen. Okay. Nachama Leibovich says nicely that it's only now when they have to go back home without Shimon that now already the Teshuvah gets much stronger, because they did this once before. They went home without Yaakov. They went home without Yosef, and that led to Yaakov's great mourning. Now they're going to come back a second time without Shimon. Now they're saying, oh my God, midah keneged midah. We see there's a bigger thing happening from God over here. We have to do Teshuvah. And now they're trying to figure out, what did we do wrong? And they said, it must be that when he cried out to us, that was terrible. And I saw some commentators say they weren't even convinced that the sale was wrong. They were just convinced that their rachamim wasn't proper. That even though they thought the sale might have still been good, but ultimately, if your brother's crying, you let the midat rachamim take over and win over the midat din. And they said, that was our mistake. Or the Ramban says a little bit different. They thought that their achzariyut, that the cruelty of not listening, that was even worse than the mechira. Meaning, according to the Ramban, it sounds like they realized the mechira was wrong, but the achzariyut, that they were cruel to not listen, that's much, much worse. So then the Ramban asks a very interesting question. He says, Vakatuv lo siper zesham. He says, when we learned about the story in last week's parasha, when they made this sale, we don't have this little piece of information that Yosef was crying out. It says, the brothers threw him into the pit, they sell him into slavery, and that's the whole story. And what about Yosef crying out? What about the screams? What about him pleading with them? What about this great cruelty that they see there? Right? Where is that? Why is that missing from the story back before? Like, what was you read it the first time, you might think maybe Yosef was silent. Maybe he was in on it. Maybe he was okay with it. What's going on over here? Why over now is the Torah telling us the story? But back there, the Torah ignored it. So the Ramban gives a couple of interpretations, which I think are great. He says, first off, answer number one, so Ramban says the first one is pashut. Of course Yosef cried out. Everybody knows that's the nature. When somebody throws their brother into a pit and then takes him out of the pit and sells him, the brother's going to cry for his life. So the Ramban says, you got to use a little bit of your own logic, and you got to fill in the blanks yourself. When you read a story, of course it's obvious, it's well known that that's what would have taken place. Okay, that's answer number one. Answer number two, I think, is a little deeper. Answer number two says as follows. Says that Torah, Hashem, out of respect to the brothers, wanted to be brief in describing their sin. Okay, I think this is powerful, and actually Nechama Leib, which explains it a little bit more from a different angle. This is not only out of respect to the brothers that Hashem want to be brief and not go discuss how terrible the sin was, but there is a bigger picture here. If we would have listened to the story the first time and read it, that the brothers are selling Yosef and he's screaming and they're ignoring him, we would have been like, okay, there's no way that these brothers are good people. Ultimately, the brothers are the Shiftei Ka. This is the holy Jewish people. We're coming from these 12 brothers. We are Bnei Israel. And ultimately, they were all great people. And the story itself was complicated. Because on the one hand, the brothers are jealous. On the other hand, Yosef was acting a little bit immature, as the Sefarno brings down, as the Torah says. He's acting like a na'ar, and he's bringing in the dibah, this negative report about them. And it's a little bit more gray. There was different sides to the story. The brothers actually were using their logic. They thought from Yosef's dream that their fathers bowing down to Yosef. They thought Yosef was like an Esav or Ishmael, and there was a lot of reasons behind what they were thinking. But if we would just read the story with Yosef screaming in the background, at that point we would have made our Gzar Din and say, you know what, these people are evil, and even now when they're doing tshuva, will be too little, too late. So Torah, Hashem hides a little bit because He doesn't want us to be too quick to judge them, and say, okay, let's keep it a little bit more parv. And because we realize later on they're going to do teshuvah, and this is a great family, and this way we won't be biased when we get to the story right now. So Hashem actually ignores a little bit of what takes place in order to give them more kavod, in order for us to still love them and realize they really are great people and not be biased by the earlier story. Okay, that's answer number two. Answer number three, or it's just the way of the Torah that it's going to be brief in one area and lengthy in another area, and they're going to fill in the blanks, and the Torah will do this. They'll do flashbacks, and they'll explain different parts, different areas, and you have to put it all together in a bigger picture. Okay, those are the Ramban's three interpretations. Nechama Leibovich embellishes on the last one and goes a little bit further, and she actually says, a little nicer, she goes, if this whole section of the Torah is talking about how the brothers do teshuvah, so realize something. When the story took place the first time and Yosef was screaming out, they ignored him. So was Yosef really screaming? That part of the story is from the perspective of the brothers. So the perspective of the brothers, they didn't hear Yosef. He was screaming, he was crying out, they totally ignored it. So from the narrative, from their perspective, Yosef wasn't screaming. It's only now, when they're going home without Shimon and they're realizing, oh my God, we messed up big time, and they're looking back in life, they're saying, what did we do wrong? They remember the cries they didn't hear the first time. And that's teshuvah. Teshuvah is to look back, see what you did wrong, and now all of a sudden Yosef has a voice again and they hear it, and now they start saying, oh my God, we messed up. God, we're sorry, we did wrong, we're ashemim, we are to blame, and we can have a real teshuvah. So it's only now, later on, when they look back, that Yosef's screams were actually heard. Shabbat Shalom.